What's up guys, it's Tusk here, and today I'm going to show you how to get arguably the strongest decision, the easiest and arguably the fastest way in Crusader Kings 3. So we'll jump into a game. You have to start in the 867 start date since this is how you get it. But there's a very simple way to unlock this. But there's two conditions. First off, you have to be Norse and you have to be a Startu in order to achieve this. But I'm sure some of you already know it is the decision of the Man on the Isles. Now, this decision on its own doesn't even come close to the others. It was when it got added in the Northern Lords pack. It gives you 7,500 men at arms, 7,500 men, with some of which are extremely powerful Viking men at arms, which are arguably the strongest in the game until you get into the later terms of the game. Now, what's important to understand as well is that I'm sure most who have unlocked it did start as either, but you can start as any Norse in any part of this, and that is actually probably the best thing you would want to do. Now, you can just start as here and make a character here, or you could obviously start as either, but I would highly suggest, especially if you want to achieve getting the other one, which is the King of the North Seas, the Empire of the North Seas, then I highly suggest starting somewhere in Norway or even as Denmark. But obviously, it's more fun if you start right from the bottom. But just to show this, I'm gonna just make a character, and what you'll want to do is you'll want to make a diplomatic character. So we'll go down to 16. Now, it's best if you are a woman for starters. Go for some traits that are attraction based, so compassionate, brave, say, and the last one is gregarious, which we just know is insane and amazing. And we'll go for some diplomacy, and then last but not least, some people might not want to do this because it's a bit cheap, because you shouldn't get this unless you go down the tree, but if that's the case, just take beautiful. But since Seducer takes a plus 40, I usually take it, and then I'll just take comely, and then I'll just put a bunch of points into diplomacy, maybe some into stewardship, and then we're just gonna hit random name and done, and submit and start. Now, because our character is very attractive, so we'll notice that we have all these different attraction modifiers that help everyone's opinion of us. Now, the fastest way to get prestige in the entire game, because if we look at the requirements for us, it's called Elevate the Kingdom of Man on the Isles. You must control the duchy title of this for starters, which we don't control yet, but we will in the future. And you get a massive amount of renown, legacy of piracy, which is nuts for raiding, and since you're Vikings, you're going to raid non-stop. You get 7,500 men, many of which are men at arms, which is just nuts off the bat. Obviously, these won't replenish, but still, bonus men, that many men is insane at this time in the game, especially in one lifetime. And main thing here is that it changes your entire government to feudal. So that means if you control all of Ireland, so we'll just go to governments here, all of this is tribal. Now, if you own all of Scotland, which is very easy, quite probable, and then conquer all of Ireland, which is also quite easy, and then if you started, say, in Norway, which is what makes it easier, but say you didn't, and then you conquered all of Norway and all of Denmark, and as much as you could here, this will all become feudal, all of it. So that right there speeds up the process, meaning you do not have to go through the cultural problems of having to adopt feudal, which is just a pain and takes a lot of time going through all the different things. Even though they did buff it, going through all these can really take a lot of time, because generally you do not want to go through a character that has learning unless you really want to play that style, especially if you're going through conquest and your children are on conquest based or the diplomatic based, then you generally don't want to play that style. So that can really change dramatically how big you can get the empire, and it means it's much easier to get the Kingdom of the North Sea, since you need to own England, Denmark and Norway, and since at that point you'd already own Denmark and Norway, you just have to conquer England. And usually you can marry towards the Dane law and then conquer England before even can contest the Danes, which usually falter, and as far as I'm aware anyways, as far as I've seen throughout my games. So now, first off, we have to actually get the living language. That's the requirement. That's probably the hardest requirement there is for this. And since we're starting here now, even Jarl Ivor only starts with 750 prestige, so even he doesn't actually have distinguished straight off the bat. Now getting there takes a very long time, the traditional route. Battle after battle after battle just does not seem to work unless it's non-stop. And even then, with Ivor, it's extremely difficult to do it because the amount of events that can pop up, you can get diseases, you can get injured, there's so many problems that can occur. So there's a way to do this, pretty much guaranteed, and that is through the attraction method. Now you can do this without going through attraction and just go standard and then go down the chivalry route, which will give you a little bit of attraction once you go down it, which can definitely work and is probable and probably more realistic in all honesty. But because we're doing it this way, we can just go through the best method, which is romancing people. We've only 50% chance, but we'll just speed through it. And we'll just speed through this right now. We're safe because we're the vassal of Jarl Ivor. And as we speed through this, now just for the sake of this purpose, obviously we want to go down diplomacy, but just because we want that extra attraction, we'll just do this, extra 10 attraction for taking temptation. And we'll just go through this, speed up. Now the reason you go diplomatic is you see it increases the power of your diplomacy schemes, and romancing is a diplomacy scheme, so that's the reason for that. And then what is he? He is deceitful, so I guess assertive would make more sense. Oh, he doesn't respond, unfortunately. Okay, we'll just continue through this, and we'll bribe the hunter, the little goal we have. Oh, because we're seduction based, we'll just do that. Highest chance. Unfortunate. Well, he would probably win. I'll just give him stuff. It's a nice knight. 20 prowess. Now that's one of the reasons she likes to go diplomatic as well. Let's see. And now, as we see, we will be able to get this one sweet kiss thing. So we don't actually want to take them as soulmates, because then that means that when we try and romance others, that they'll get a massive negative modifier because of it. Now this can actually be really effective because you can end up with his kids and then you get a claim to the Kingdom of France and Aquitaine when he dies, because you can have a bastard, and then if you legitimize them, then you get those claims as well. But that's a different story entirely. What we're after here is the prestige, and as you can see, it gives 1500 prestige. Now this is because he's a king and because we are a count. Now the gap between our ranks substantially matters. So if I was to go for a duke right now, which is only one level above us, then we would get 750 prestige. And if they were the same level as us, we would get 350 prestige. And you also gain some prestige if you romance your wife. You get 75, but it's pretty much negligible. But the reason it's so good in the start is because of the Carlonians and all these different kings. There's so many kings, and then we've got Brittany, we've got France, we've got Lotharingia, we've got Eastern France or Germany, we've got Italy, we've got Navarra, we've got all these different possibilities to romance them. And many of them are actually quite easy because our attraction is so high. It doesn't matter that we're a different religion. It's practically irrelevant because our attraction is that high. Now, if it does become difficult, what you can do is you can befriend them first, or try to befriend them and then romance them, and that means that you'll have a higher opinion modifier, or send them a gift, but that can become extremely expensive. Now, the other factor that this method brings, because you start as tribal, and this is why I suggest also starting in Norway, is that because we have so much prestige from constantly romancing people, you see that we're already getting progress towards illustrious, and we've already become distinguished, we can afford men-at-arms at a negative cost. So we could just go for the best men-at-arms, which is pretty much Bulgarian veterans, and just have tons of these, all based on the prestige cost. And then as we constantly romance people, we can have an absolutely enormous army of purely just Bulgarian veterans if we really wanted to, which are the strongest base stats anyway, and just fly through beating everyone based on this strategy. It's extremely powerful in this sense, especially if you get a good commander. Now, obviously, if you didn't go with the attraction method, it would be quite unreliable to get to actually get reliable romances going, because the percentages can be a lot of the time 0% to romancing, especially if your personality traits don't mix. But since we have so much attraction, we're very likable by people. So now I'm just going through the process of romancing all the kings and just trying to show you how efficient and well this method is. And as you can see, I'm just going basically in clockwise condition, just going from France to Lotharingia and then to Ludwig. And each time you can see how fast my this method gets you prestige. Now I'm spending all my effort in just romancing them as fast as possible. Obviously you'd be doing other things, but you could do that while paused and romancing at the same time very easily. But just to show you how fast this can be done, this is by far the best method you could possibly get. It's actually ridiculous, just by speed running. I've done it before in other years, but I always end up forgetting to immediately romance someone afterwards. But if you do constantly keep it up, it's actually ridiculous how fast. There we go. Just in 4 years, that's 8,000 prestige, and we're already exalted among men. So now, basically, the rest of the years is all about becoming a living legend, which is what makes becoming a living legend so difficult, because it takes way more fame than the others, having to get pretty much twice as much time just to get those. So now I'm just looking for another king. We find out just go from the Muslims in Spain. And again, because we're have such high diplomacy and attraction, this really isn't an issue, because everyone's so high. There's usually about 50%, but we did notice that Italy, the king was only 20% in favor of diplomacy because of his personality against ours. Now, the reason you generally want to go for a woman is because sometimes the kings won't have a wife, and then in that circumstance, you can't romance the wife because they're not there. But you could do this as a man as well, and it would still perfectly work out fine, because you just romance their wife instead. There you go. That's just 9 years in, almost 10 years in, and I have 15,000 prestige. Just a little bit of living legend, one last duke, and there you go. Living legend in just 10 years.